Indiana Jones and the Order of the Giants is a story expansion to one of my biggest surprises of this last year, Indiana Jones and the Great Circle. I'd always been a fan of the franchise, but I wouldn't have called myself a diehard one. I still enjoyed those movies, some more than others. So when Machine Games was announced to be making a licensed game based off the IP, I was worried but also optimistic because I didn't want this game to just be an Uncharted or Tomb Raider clone, and what we got couldn't have been farther from that. It ended up being more something akin to the Dishonored or the Prey series, and the reception of the base game speaks for itself, with it earning great reviews all around. Although the game wasn't a massive sales success, that word of mouth was positive, and the people that did play it really ended up enjoying it, with the game ending up on many's top games of 2024 list, my own included. Since then, it's received a few small updates along the way, like enhanced RTX features, difficulty tuning, and radio stations that cover events in the game as you progress, but the biggest thing outside of that DLC release is in fact the game is now available on PlayStation 5, allowing those players to hop in and experience that story for the first time. This DLC pack is going to offer up a 4-hour storyline that is going to take you above and below the streets of Rome as you try to uncover that mystery of the Order of Giants. While I enjoyed that storyline and what we got, I do think it could have benefited from fleshing out that order as a whole, as well as adding a few more locations that were interesting, as it did start to feel kinda samey as you progress through all these different tunnels and sewers. And if you enjoyed that base game, this DLC is definitely going to be something you'll like, but if you're like me, you also might be feeling a little let down.
Relic. Bring it back to the Holy See. Defend the secret. They worshipped the giants.
Order of the Giants is included with that deluxe upgrade or Game Pass upgrade that you might have bought to play the game early, but you can also purchase it separately for $20 and is available on every platform, bar the Nintendo Switch 2, which is getting a release sometime in 2026. What you get here is a new explorable area of Rome, but explorable is sort of pushing it in my eyes, a little bit more on that later, and a new story to experience, which is going to run you about 4-ish hours to complete, depending on how good you are at solving puzzles. Technical performance-wise, it was good. I'm on an RTX 4080 i7-13700 combo with a mixture of high and ultra settings. The base game ran fine, so I'm happy to report here that the DLC also runs great. If you'd like to see a bigger technical breakdown or whatever, I've got the original review that you can find on your screen now, but I always do recommend that if you are planning or checking the game out, it's always best to look at a few videos with comparable specs so you at least have an idea of what you'll be working with. So in order to start this DLC, you're going to need to have made it to the Vatican and completed a few missions in order to obtain that clerical uniform. From here, Indy is going to meet Father Ritchie, who's going to tip you off to an old Crusader tomb that is hidden below the city of Rome. And of course, Indy being Indy, he's got to go check it out. He's got to go see what's down there, because this also pertains to the ones they call the Giants. These are characters and figures that pop up throughout that main story, and here's our chance to learn a little bit more about them. One thing I'll say right off the bat with this DLC pack is that it's very stealth and puzzle focused when it comes to the gameplay side of things. And only a few times did I ever feel like I ever needed to go loud or have some sort of big combat encounter. Most scenarios were pretty easy, at least on my end, and that's probably attributed to me going in with a nearly 100% save, and I had all the necessary disguises, but I do imagine if you play this game early on, or maybe on a fresh playthrough, it could be quite challenging. Speaking about the story a little bit, I won't talk too much about it, but personally, I actually liked a good amount of it. I do wish that we could have just gotten a little bit more to do. You're introduced to, obviously, the story of the Giants and the Order, and then there's this cult that's thrown in there, and we don't really get much depth on that. They're just kind of these faceless figures that are there. I wish we could have just had a little bit better execution at times, a little more depth on those characters. Troy Baker, once again, nails it as Indiana Jones. When you got the man Harrison Ford saying, if he'd have known you're so good, he'd have just done it himself, I think that's all the praise that you need in my eyes, and he continues that here in the Order of the Giants. The ending is actually a really cool sequence. I won't spoil too much here, but it was something that I actually really did have a lot of fun with, even though it was a pretty straightforward ending and it really wasn't trying to do anything different, but it was just a cool set piece that you got to see. I think that my biggest issue with this DLC as a whole is I just maybe think I was expecting a little bit more. You don't have any new weapons, there's no new gear, there's a couple skill books that you can find, but there's no optional boxing rings, there's no optional mini games, which I do think is a little bit of a missed opportunity. I absolutely adored that base game, and that's maybe why I think I'm a little bit bummed out with this DLC release, because I quite literally did everything in that base game, all the quest, bar a few puzzles and notes, I did everything. So don't get me wrong, I still liked the Order of the Giants, I just wish that maybe we could have gotten a little bit more, and maybe I had my expectations a little too high. I think the best parts of that base game were when Machine Games gave you these little sandbox areas and just said, go crazy. And here in the Order of the Giants, it feels like it's a much more linear, one-way experience instead of having that openness that we had in the base game. So while yes, you do get a new area of Rome to explore, it's not some big city area or map like the Vatican was. More so what you have is a bunch of smaller connected maps that all link up in some way, shape, or form, with the only ones that have much exploring potential are these dark underground tunnels or sewers, which is where you're going to be spending a majority of your time in this expansion. There's a few collectibles that you can find scattered throughout the maps, but honestly, nothing too crazy with your optional puzzle or two. And then speaking about the puzzles, they really doubled down this time with them. And I think that if you didn't like the puzzles in the base game or you thought they were too hard, these ones might break you, because I'll tell you right now, I had to break out a notebook. I had to, be writing all this shit out. Thankfully, all the puzzles themselves are really cool set pieces, and the different ways that you go about solving them I thought was challenging. And normally puzzles in games do just absolutely irritate the shit out of me. So I'm happy to say these weren't half bad, but they do require a little bit of brain power. So do I think that Indiana Jones and the Order of the Giants is worth that asking price? I'd say if you're a fan of that base game and already bought that premium edition or Game Pass upgrade, it's definitely worth jumping back into and giving it a play. But if you're a little bit more on the cautious side, I think that waiting for a sale is definitely the right move, considering it takes roughly 4 hours to finish this game with maybe another hour or so to clean up all those collectibles. It's a fun, short little story that sees you diving into the depths of Rome while uncovering the mystery of the Giants. I do just wish they would have had a little bit more time and depth to flesh out that storyline, but in the end, I still liked what we got. From a gameplay side of things and map size, I do wish that that could have just been expanded on instead of being a much more linear experience, because I really enjoyed that base game giving us that freedom. It really did feel like that Dishonored or Prey, which I think here with this expansion and DLC release, it did feel like a step back. I do wonder if Machine Games are planning on doing a sequel to this game, or if they're going to go back to the drawing board with the Wolfenstein franchise in the meantime. Regardless, it is a bittersweet moment to see Indiana Jones and the Great Circle come to an end here, as it was my favorite game of 2024, and with no further DLCs planned at this time, this looks like it may just be the end of the game, and if it is, I'm damn happy with the package as a whole now, and I suspect many others will be as well. That wraps it up here for me, so if you did enjoy the video, make sure to drop it a like, consider subscribing, and hitting that notification bell, as it greatly helps me out here on YouTube. I'm going to get back to playing Silksong. I can't guarantee that I'm going to do a review for that one. I'm just kind of playing that one in my free time and enjoying it. In the meantime, we've got Borderlands 4 to look forward to next week on September 12th. I won't have a review out for that one ahead of launch, but I will be working to get one out in the weeks following. And then we have Assassin's Creed Shadows DLC on September 16th, along with the Skate Early Access period, and then Dying Light, The Beast on the 19th. So if any of those games interest you at all, stick around. It's going to be one busy month, and I'd love to have you here. And as always, if you did make it this far, I just want to say thank you for taking the time out of your day. And this has been my review for Indiana Jones and the Order of Giants. Thank you for watching.